I always had misgivings about the media, and even Mark Caputo said something about the DC press corps becoming a kingmaker. I'd love to hear more about that. I didn't quite understand all of that, but the fact is, how the heck did that happen? When will there be a reckoning? Because I want to trust the fourth estate. So I really don't, and I haven't
Yeah.
heard a good explanation why they fell asleep at the wheel and when is accountability going to happen for that?
So, Dean, first of all, Joe Scarborough, it's Morning Joe's real name, is a close friend of mine and has been for a long time. And so I always talk about Joe with the reverence and camaraderie of someone who's a close friend. The reality is that Joe Biden had lots of moments of lucidity. It's a mistake for the right. What I always said during the campaign is Biden was not as lucid as his defenders said, but he wasn't as out of it as his detractors said. And we've all, not of all, many of us have had relatives or friends who are going through mental decline, and they have, as they say, good days and bad days. And so some people like Joe had interactions with Trump who with Biden when he had a good day. And so and you can look at Biden events from the first and second half, maybe more the first half
State of the
of
Union
20,
after, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
State of the Union. Okay, State of the Union is a great example. Thank you. I mean, that State of the Union where he was riffing and he was going back and forth with the Democrats, with the Republicans, that wasn't uh, uh, necessarily representative of all his behavior, but it wasn't wholly unrepresentative. It wasn't as good as Joe Biden was 4 years, 8 years ago, whatever. But you can't look at that. When Joe said best Biden ever, you could point to not just communication he had with Biden, but you could point to that State of the Union speech and say, that's pretty good. That arguably was best Biden ever. So to make Joe and others into villains for saying, I see a lot of good in Biden, I think is a mistake. But I also think it's a mistake for the Democrats to pretend there wasn't between the Biden officials and the Democrat and the media the largest and most outrageous conspiracy in the history of the United States to cover up his loss of mental decline. I'm comfortable with both those realities, and I've said it many times. That conspiracy was an outrage, and the fact that even after it was exposed in the debate, it continued. They took 2 weeks, they said, to get Biden up the ticket. Oh, yeah, the guy's got mental decline. And then they went right back to writing stories saying about how he's, outrunning his more junior staff, to the point where we've seen this round of stories that I've talked about here that, again, act like, oh, this was just right-wing propaganda. He was fine. I'm pretty sure I understand exactly what went on. And part of what went on was collusion. And what kind of profession, my profession, what kind of profession engages in a professional, a conspiracy, which is at its core a fundamental abrogation of their core professional ethos, and lies about it, and then gets caught, and then never acknowledges it, continues to write stories. Oh, and by the way, these same organizations, and in many cases, these same people are now covering Donald Trump.
Yes, yes.
When you ask why they did it, they primarily did it because they did not want Donald Trump to win. And as long as Joe Biden was the vehicle to stop Donald Trump, they did not want to upset that. They also did it for some subsidiary reasons. One, the Biden people browbeat and threatened anyone who stepped out of line. And they did it because they thought it was too late to replace Biden. And they did it because they liked Joe Biden. And they bought into the decades-long conspiracy of, or not conspiracy, of myth making, that he was such a nice guy that you had to be nice to him. As the special counsel said, a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. Okay? There's more to it than that. And hopefully I'll find the time and wherewithal to write about this in a way that puts it in a lot of context. But I would say to you, I don't really think you need presumption of grace for the media on this one, because this was such an outrage. But I do think you shouldn't act like Biden didn't have good days, because he did. And as you point out, State of the Union is probably the most prominent example, but there are plenty of other days. But I mean, I would never write a story about the whether Joe Biden had mental acuity decline without pointing out that he once, and some people on the left get mad at me because I use this example all the time. He spoke to a dead congresswoman. It was at an event to honor her and the fact that she was dead. He was meeting with her family. And when the White House press corps asked the press secretary why he was speaking to a dead congresswoman as if she were there and alive, she said, because she was top of mind. That should have brought America to a halt. Should have brought America to a halt. Because I mistake names. Dean, I might call you Fred, or I might refer to one of my best friends by the wrong name. But I never talk to dead people. I never talk to dead people. I never think dead people are alive.